so miserable. And police saying it's not over. They're saying this could be the worst day so far. Police sources say there could be as many as 38 gatherings planned today on what is expected to be a big day of riots. This is a list. I do worry we'll put this list out. Basically, everyone show up. But anyway, there's a list of where the suspected... That was a bit quick. Let's have a look. Where the suspected riots... Right. So have a look and see if that's your area there. There's a big list. That's from the Daily Mail, I think. So most of them are being concentrated in the north of England. We can see more are being planned in the southeast. It does seem like it seems like there's something going on behind this, doesn't it, Bobby? It's not just a lot of random blokes with beer bellies just chanting. There's almost like an organising.
Yeah, very malicious, structured, organised. And again, initially when we looked at the riots last week, they were mostly in northern cities. But now, if you look at that map there, it's moving down towards the south, towards the southeast and London. And it is really worrying because I saw some stuff on social media, again, X, which is very much a cesspool, almost tempted to mute mine indefinitely
dreadful,
for that. But they were saying talks of these rioters targeting those who offer immigration services, consultancies, lawyers. So almost,
I saw that.
Yes. And that feels very much echoing certain other decades that we've had globally, where people sort of drawing the net in.
There's a standing army, we're told, of almost 6,000 specialist police officers who are going to be on standby for mass action today after a list was shared online that singled out, as Bobby says, immigration, lawyers, charities, support services, etc. I don't know, this odd thing of this specialised police force that seems to be hanging around. I don't know who they are.
They will be riot police.
Oh, right, that's what it is.
That's what they will be. But what I wanted to comment on was the fact that this is being organised online. And almost the only thing that Keir Starmer said recently, which I agree with totally, is that if it's criminal offline, then it's criminal online.
For sure.
And yet it appears just to go on. And so I wonder, you know, if you're talking about specialist police, maybe we need some specialist approaches to social media and to finding the organisers.
Well, it's quite a good way of capturing them, isn't it? Because they're so thick that they've gone on social media and some of them under their own names, and they're all going to be arrested.
Well, I hope so.
Well, I think so, but unless it's happening in Russia and it's so-called bots, which aren't even real. It's the odd thing to me, Anne, is that you know, if you say to these social media companies, hang on a minute, you've allowed such and such a person to tweet this or put this up, and it stayed up for several days, they often say, we can't do anything about that because we can't look at every tweet because there are so many.
Well, we know they can do something about it if something's pointed out to them because they cancel quickly enough. You know, if somebody says something controversial, they cancel quickly enough. So they can do something about it, and I would say there's an absence of will there. And I would actually support legislation which says that if social media companies, knowing what is happening, do not immediately take that down, then they commit an offence. At
the moment, that doesn't seem to exist. I think they seem to have a... Yeah, they are able to basically say it's not us, Gov.
You need to use it sparingly. I'm not, you know, I'm not saying you police
but Musk
every minute.
So we need to mention... so Elon Musk runs Twitter, is now behaving like the president of a small country, basically. In fact, got a medium-sized country, and starting to lecture Keir Starmer on what he's doing wrong.
And he's the one that's been tweeting, he's been supporting Tommy Robinson on social media. He's making comments about our UK political system. It's a guy that's barely been to Britain, doesn't understand our country. Fair enough, he's a successful tech entrepreneur, but he's suddenly wading into matters that don't concern him.
But his contention is that we're starting to think social media is a bad thing, and Musk says it can never be.
No, it can be a bad thing.
Yeah, well, listen, I agree. But Musk's view is you're never going to lose if you allow people, ordinary people, whoever they are, wherever they are, to say what's on their mind. You're never going to lose out. We beg to differ.
Well, I mean, I think the point is this. I don't mind people saying things, but it is when what they're saying is criminal, in as much as if they were doing it through any other medium and organising a riot, they would immediately feel the full force of the law. They get away with it on social media, and it's no good Musk saying, when people are cancelled merely for having controversial views, you know, that we all lose out when we can't speak our minds. He's being extremely selective.
I think this map here, it might well not happen. Because I think in a way the police, I think by saying this is where everyone is going to be, are deliberately saying, if you turn up and riot, you're going to go to jail. So people will think again. When you see, my town centre, I was going to go to the town centre and I was going to do, and then you see it's on the map in the Daily Mail, you think, I won't go. That's what we've got to hope, isn't it?
And also, I think in the last few days, we started to see the first couple of people being put through the courts.
Yeah.
And that will put people off. Again, there were a couple of these rioters that were sobbing, sobbing in court, crying for his mum. So these people, the grifters on the side, they might think actually twice about.
I think the other thing is, Jeremy, and you know I'm going to say this because I always do, it always is innocent until proved guilty. And the police have already arrested somebody merely for being somewhere. That was Martin Daubney, GB News report.
Oh, yeah.
He committed no crime other than being at a demo, not taking part in it, but reporting on it. And he was arrested. Now, he was quickly de-arrested. But, you know, people being there and people rioting are two completely different things.
I think, what do you think about the idea that we should say, if you are in a public place with a balaclava on, that's an offence?
Yes.
Because I think it's amazing that you can wander around with a balaclava and you're not committing an offence.
I mean, why would you cover your face?
In a time like this? Yeah. Well, why would you unless you're cycling somewhere?
And what's ironic, Jeremy, is some of these people wearing balaclavas are probably the ones during lockdown like, no masks for me. And
yeah, exactly. The Daily Mail is leading with the headline that children as young as 11 are taking part in riots. And what would happen, Bobby, if someone in your school turned out to have been on one? How would you deal with that?
So again, in theory, we've got measures about prevent anti-terrorism. So if students that we think are getting caught up in things which are extreme, we have a responsibility to report it to our local authority. So it gets escalated. But again, there's like a bigger point, like in terms of the context, we've had an appalling murder of 3 young children in Southport. And that should have been a moment for, I almost think, unity, like, mourning and unity and what can we do? But actually it's been exploited by people for their own agenda. And by
misinformation as well.
Misinformation, their own agenda.
Yes.
And then,
but you see, the misinformation initially was that the person was a migrant who came over on a boat.
That's right,
and they were a Muslim. So far as we know, the suspect is not a Muslim and was born here. So then you're thinking, these people must know that now, but they're still rioting.
Oh, they've known it for days.
Yes, I think they have. And they seem to just be rioting because the suspect is black. That's essentially what this comes down to. And
I think it's gone beyond that now. I think actually if you put a microphone under the nose of somebody who was rioting and said, why are you rioting? I don't think they'd say that.
Yeah,
I mean, I think it has become really angry stuff now.
But anger at their own personal circumstances and, OK, well, we'll talk a bit about this because obviously the next thing is to say this is so serious, it's terrorism. And a top prosecutor says the people involved could be charged with terrorist offences. Now, I wonder whether you say, OK, it is serious, but it's not terror. Give us a call with your thoughts. Is it terrorism? 0207 862 2222 is the number you need. Neil Basu, the former head of UK counter-terrorism, says scenes like this that we've seen over the last few days should be treated as terrorism. The Director of Public Prosecutions, Stephen Parkinson, says that suspects could face being charged with terrorism offences. Sources say the number of arrests has now surpassed 400, and counter-terrorism police are investigating potential terror crimes. Now, the key thing is, obviously it's very serious. No one is taking away from that. But does it fit with our understanding of what terrorism is? Now, let's just look at what we might call the face of terror here, or rather faces of terror, because we've got more than one. So I'm going to go through some examples to see whether we've got some comparisons that we can make. And you may recognise these as we go through. So we start, obviously, with, I suppose, the classic terrorist profile is bin Laden up here, who was responsible for the Twin Towers and many other atrocities and who is now dead. Here we have this group of people, the Baader Meinhof, OK? So they were German in the 70s. They kidnapped this industrial leader, held him hostage and then killed him. Tremendously, seriously nasty group. In Italy, very similar. Aldo Mori was an Italian prime minister, kidnapped, found dead in the back of a car, Red Army faction. So again, 70s terror in mainland Europe. Then we have, I suppose, here we are, IRA using a lot of bombs. We would see them very much as terrorists. And when you're looking at bombings, this is one of the worst. This is homegrown. This is quite relevant. Timothy McVeigh in Oklahoma. Have a listen.
Wow. Holy cow. About a third. About a third of the building has been blown away, and you can see just smoke and debris and fire on the ground, downtown on the ground.
I've taken a bit of time there because that's homegrown right-winger Timothy McVeigh there, executed. Terrible, terrible domestic terrorism. And we got Beslan in Russia. That was targeting a children's school by separatists. And here we had Charlie Hebdo, which was an Islamist attack on a satirical magazine. So, okay, I put those together. We could have used more. And you have classic, I suppose, images from the Middle East where you have a hostage situation and a threatened execution. And then we go to these scenes that we're seeing in the UK. And we have to ask this question. Does this compare? That is the question. However bad it is, you may say it's not terror. It doesn't fit. Bobby, it doesn't fit with those other ones.
So the way I think about it is rioters, they're not a homogenous group of people. There's a spectrum. You've got, on one side, you've got the chancers, almost the ones who are bored, the 11-year-olds. You know, they probably were in school a few weeks ago. And on the other side, you've got the extremists, the professionals, almost the ex-National Action. And I actually was looking up the definition of terrorism under the Terrorism Act of 2000. And there's three components in order for something to be classed as terrorism. The first one is the use or threat of action. Is there violence against persons or property? Does it endanger lives? Is there a serious risk to the public? I think, yes, we've seen that in the last few days.
OK, but you could say football hooligans do that.
Football hooligans, yeah, but I think it's got to meet all
OK,
of them.
go on. What are the other two?
The second one is the purpose. Is this action designed to influence the government, trying to change their policy, or intimidate the public or terrorise certain sections of the community? And again, I would say, again, as a South Asian, I have definitely felt intimidated in the last few days. And the third part is, what is their motivation behind this action? Is their purpose advancing a cause? Is it political, ideological, racial? And from seeing what they've been doing, is the things that they've been saying on social media, you can say, yes, possibly.
Yeah, but you're on that basis, you could almost say Just Stop Oil are terrorists, which you know, I don't know whether we're widening the definition too far.
I don't think this is helpful at all. I think it's a knee-jerk reaction to a horrible situation. And I think it would be wrong. And I think they'd also run the risk that probably a halfway decent lawyer could argue that it wasn't terrorism, and it would be very difficult to get any jury to convict. So I actually think leave terrorism alone. We all know what terrorism is.
What is terrorism then?
Well, you've just explained it.
What about Timothy McVeigh is a good example. So I dwelt on that. It's a horrible attack in America. That's a homegrown right-winger who used a bomb. And he blew up, by the way, there was a daycare centre in that building. So is that close, do you think, Anne?
What we've got here is rioting largely against property, police under attack. I think it is very different from planning out an attack on innocent people with a view to then bringing about a political result. I don't actually see this as terrorism. Hang on, Bobby, hang on, because I'm aware you feel strongly, but so do I. Because I think one of the important things is there's got to be a certainty of conviction. And I don't think there's any doubt at all that if the evidence is produced, that somebody will have a problem being convicted of violent disorder or rioting.
I mean, it's aggravated if it's terrorism, obviously. Let's just talk a bit more. The Muslim community has been particularly under attack during these riots. So we're going to speak to Ajmal Masroor, a British imam, broadcaster, politician. Good morning. Do you think, terrorism?
Good morning. I think, broadly speaking, terrorism as a concept has been used and abused by politicians to suit their needs. And using it and abusing it again could fall prey of similar accusation as I'm making right now. But there is a bigger problem, and that is these demonstrations, these protests that have taken place have primarily targeted Muslims, primarily targeted mosques, and of course, businesses and properties belonging to Muslims, after the misinformation that was spread by social media posts that we've seen and some of the far-right advocates and activists. So if a community has been terrorized, which in this case they have, Muslims, we've left it being intimidated, we're receiving advice not to leave our homes, lock down our mosques, we've been told to walk with others, keep an eye on what's going on. This is all creating and festering further fear in our community. And most importantly, businesses are being shut because people are afraid. If this is not terror, I don't know what is terror. And if we don't classify such thuggery, such criminal activities on our streets, targeted Muslim attack, Islamophobia, as I call it, as terrorist-related activities, I don't know how we will ever get away with saying it to be anything different. You can call it racial attack, you can call it criminal attack, of course. But sadly, a community, a collective community, is being terrorized right now. Yeah, and that's an awful feeling to feel, to live at the receiving end of it.
But the sort of migrants, the people off the boats who are in the hotels, that's not an attack on Muslims. It's just an attack on basically strangers.
And can I point out that in the incident in Birmingham recently, it was Muslims themselves, pro-Palestinian demonstrators, who actually were causing the disorder. As a response, it's not the primary mover? No, they thought they were going to have to make a response. Okay. They thought that there was going to be a riot, and there wasn't.
Well, hang on, Ajmal wants to come in on that.
And I think, let's be fair, Muslim leaders from Birmingham came out, condemned these thugs, called them thugs, and if they are causing terror-related activities in the streets of Birmingham, I'll be the first one to say, arrest them, try them, put them behind bars. Hold on, I will, if they're found guilty of it. I'm consistent with my philosophy here. I'm consistent with my principle. Anyone who terrorizes our community, anyone who promotes, anyone who glorifies these kind of activities should be bracketed in one bracket. They are destroying our unity and harmony. And we can't stand for this. Look, I'm a trustee of Abdullah Quliam Mosque, Britain's first mosque. Did you know Britain's first mosque was established by a white man? His name is Henry William Quliam in 1887. And there were thugs who came to attack that mosque, having no idea as to what they were doing. And most importantly, completely confused and baffled when we went over and offered them some food and invited them to come to the mosque. Now, there is, of course, confusion. There is, of course, naivety on the part of some of those people. I don't want to call them all thugs, but they're being run by and led by thugs, and they're being championed by some politicians who are simply glorifying.
Thank you, Ajmal. I've got to move on, and we're going to take a break and talk some more. Ajmal Manzoor, thank you very much for joining us. I now understand why it's called the Quilliam Foundation, by the way. Just explain that to me. Thank you. After the break, we're taking your calls on whether you think the rioters are terrorists. 0207 862 2222. See you shortly. Right, callers have been hanging on. Marie, let's get to you first in West Sussex. Are they terrorists, Marie?
As far as I am concerned, yes. For the simple reason that any excuse to go out and just cause trouble and mayhem for innocent people who are scared to go out of their own homes, who see that their cars are being burnt. Why? And why are there so many? Well, why are there so many of them in protesting? Don't they have jobs to go to? Are they all on benefits? And what happens with the children? Yeah, but they're out. Where's their mother or father? And what else I was thinking, or I did say, sorry, is there's a boat that was meant for the illegal immigrants to go to Rwanda. Perhaps they used to try and gather all these people up as best they can, put them on the boat and send them to Rwanda.
Well, yeah, it was a plane, but you're right. Whether they could, I mean, lots of people have said. Maybe there was a boat. I don't know. No, good point, Marie. A lot of people saying that actually that they should go to Rwanda. Thank you, Rita in Surrey. Are they terrorists though?
I wouldn't actually. Good morning, everybody. I wouldn't actually class them as terrorists, but they're definitely a violent thugs that need to stop. I do believe that there's a bigger picture. I think the little girl's murders were the straw that broke the camel's back. And I think it's all to do with everybody wanting their country back. They keep trying to portray people as being racist and prejudiced, but that isn't the case. Nobody minds the legal migrants. It's the ones on the boat. Because they are a lot of criminals on there. Yeah. They destroy their passports, they destroy their paperwork.
Well, I'm saying only because the thing you said before when you said nobody minds the legal migrants, except that, of course, it may well be that We don't know, but was the person who did the stabbings in Southport somebody who's perfectly legal British citizen?
He was.
Actually,
Yes,
I
we don't know if he's guilty or not. Remember that?
No. We don't know if he's guilty, but we do know that he was.
No, I know.
I want to ask Rita a question. Like you said, people want their country back. Well, what exactly does that mean? Like, you always hear this. The rioters are saying this. What do they mean by they want their country back?
Well, I want my country
No,
back.
and hang on a sec. We'll come to that. Rita, you're being asked a question by the great Bobby Seagull.
Yes. Good morning, Bobby.
Good morning, Rita.
You've got to be a blind man to not notice that our country's been spoiled, you know, and nobody helps.
What do you mean by spoiled, though? Again, I'm a teacher, so I want to understand. When you're saying spoiled, what you obviously mean something.
Well, the older generation, not just the older generation, but people, you know, are scared to go out. They can't live their lives the way they want to. Everything seems to be ruined, you know, and everything's got out of control. The country is broken.
Are you suggesting what it's to do with very high levels of immigration that we've, inverted commas, lost our country? Is that, because I hear that phrase a lot?
Well, I suppose you could fit in that bracket, but again, if we say that, we're just classed as racist and prejudiced.
Well, I'm just trying to get to what you're saying. Well, Bobby's trying to get to work out what what you think has caused the country to go down the Swanee as you see it.
Well, I think there's a few reasons. One, because there's so much money being spent on their accommodation. The money for Rwanda that's been lost, we won't get that back, but it's all wasted money that could go back into this country. The pensioners now, you know, losing their fuel bills, help with the fuel bills. There's lots of different, it isn't just one thing.
We'll sympathise here a bit. Anne, were you about to agree?
Yeah, I do sympathise. I mean, I often use the phrase, I want my country back. I'm not talking, actually, about immigration. I'm talking about all manner of things that I once took for granted, like freedom of speech, a health service that worked, all those things. And I do want my country back. That doesn't mean I think I'm necessarily going to get it back. But one of the things that I think has contributed to this has been the refusal of politicians, not just one particular government, of politicians, to actually face up to how far the levels of illegal, and I stress illegal immigration, were actually starting to distress people.
Well, yeah, clearly something's gone on with the boats in particular, which has got people in a sort of roiling rage that has broken through now. Do you agree with that, Bobby, or not?
Yeah, the thing is, I think it's perfectly fair to ask questions about migration, perfectly fair to ask questions about asylum seekers and integration. But my worry is that when people talk about wanting their country back, a lot of them, they've got an ulterior motive. I think it's like a class of citizenship. They almost see certain people that are indigenous white people that are true Brits, whereas people like myself are not. So I'll give you one example. About a few weeks ago, I was actually on the Storm Huntley show, and I did a segment talking about Southgate's statistical record as England manager.
Oh, gosh.
And I just said, and on the segment, I said, Southgate, he doesn't have the great style of football, but actually we should be grateful because he's taken us to semi-finals and finals. And the torrent of abuse I got, racial abuse, saying, who's we? And then a few people with their public profiles, they've got their jobs, they're being very brazen, not afraid to hide their identity. They started saying things like, Bobby, you are Indian, you can never be British. And I fear a lot of the people who say they want their country back, I'm not saying you, Anne, they actually think that people can't be British unless you're white.
Thank you, Rita. Avtime Birmingham, do you think it's terrorism?
Yes, I do, absolutely. Because if you go down the traditional route of terrorism is picking on a particular set of values, obviously, like in this case, it's like immigrants. It is actually terror on the streets. I mean, I've got a hospital appointment in Heartlands Hospital tomorrow, and where Anne was saying about the Muslim rioters, that's exactly where Heartlands Hospital's entrance is, and it beggars belief that just for a basic hospital appointment, you're having to fear being attacked. It's absolutely ludicrous.
Avtar, thank you very much. I want to show you a couple of tweets, okay, which lead us to this question about, is this terror because there's a guiding mind. I mean, if a load of yobs run into the street and start burning things, you can argue that isn't terror. Katie Hopkins, very well-known outright or whatever you want to call her, tweeting locations. Please add other patriot gatherings. What's that if it's not incitement to go down there? Tommy Robinson, who's away. Let's see the next one. He's even more specific. He actually gives a postcode with Rotherham, which will take you to the Holiday Inn where apparently there are migrants staying. So again, he may well be in some serious legal trouble for that. Then you've got over here, next one please, Tyler Lombard, just a kind of randomer, says start blowing up the effing mosques and send them to Allah. Disgusting tweet, police already involved there. Then you've got Lucy Connolly, she's the wife of a Conservative councillor. Mass deportation now, set fire to all the hotels for all I care. Take the treacherous politicians. I feel physically sick knowing what the Southport families have to endure. If that makes me racist, so be it. Police involved, I gather, with that. And this man posted, incredibly, a picture of a mosque. I'm resistant to even reading this out, but talking about stabbing and so on. So police, involved with those cases. And we were discussing whether it's terrorism or not. And thank you for your calls.